Tow it. Don't we tow it, right? Yeah. Tow it.
I could be a teacher too, but I'm just admitting, I just want to make sure it's not one of your cars.
We'll all close our eyes for a second in the opening prayer, then you can run out during that time. All right, let's begin. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. All right, I understand last week there was some problem with the streaming, so you didn't have to sit through what I was doing in Saket. So I'm not going to go through that again, just because the Saket people will feel like I'm repeating this time. But we'll bring in some elements there of what we talked about last time, but not everything, okay? So what are we starting off with here? And by the way, today we're going to go through the 4th chapter, which is what we're learning in the assembly. For the Gita chanting competition this year, the 4th chapter is what's allotted. Are you hearing an echo or a disturbance? Are you hearing it too? I think it's a feedback monitor from there, one of the feedback speakers. So when it comes to what we left off last time, at the end of the 3rd chapter, we find that Arjuna is convinced that Karma Yoga is necessary. That to purify this inner instrument, approaching that seat of knowledge, this is the only way to prepare myself to have any scope to understand the knowledge. But then he finds himself in one more dilemma at this point. Because you look at the study of any subject in the world, what matters more than the subject, for instance, is the person teaching it. Think back to your favorite subject in school. I'm sure the teacher that taught you that subject had a lot to do with that, the way in which we learn it. When I was in 9th and 10th grade, we had an amazing history teacher. History is a string of dates and people who have died long ago. Why do they matter to my life today? We don't really know, but we have to memorize and learn these things. So 9th and 10th, that teacher made it come alive. Examples that were there had us play the different roles of these people. How would they speak to each other? What would they say? Very immersive, interactive learning style. Then we got to 11th grade. 11th grade, my history teacher was a 70-year-old man. It was his last year of teaching. So he was literally there for that final paycheck. And you would see during class time, he'd be looking at boats and stuff online, renting. Retirement life, the planning started then. Which boat to buy, where to dock, as we would talk about in class also. So the way he would do things in class was, there were no exams or anything in class, nothing. It was, he said, exams give people stress. I don't want to give you stress. Learn at your own pace is what he would say. I don't even know what that means, but he would say learn at your own pace, which means we each got a textbook, and you open that up, and every week you go through a different chapter on your own. You say write notes down. I'll take those notes and I'll grade those notes. So it was wild where we had our own parallel government that would work. One of us would do the notes every single week. The other 15 would copy those notes, different variations of each. So like coveted time slots, right? They gave me the slot the week after Thanksgiving. So Thanksgiving I had to actually spend writing down some of these notes because then you're benefiting from that organization, right? The syndicate that we have running. Prime thing that we have, that's how we got it. Oh, the year was amazing. We had a great time. He didn't care about food or drink or gum or anything. So we'd have feasts. So I told my mom one day, I have to have cookies for class tomorrow. She said, oh, which class is this for? I said, history. She said, you're having an event? I said, no, this is a parallel government event. We're on our own, we have our own little potlucks that we have. So it was an amazing time. Some of the best friends I ever made were in that class. Because there was no work in that class, lasting friendships from there. We discussed everything. It was like a little salon that we were having there. Then came time for the IB exam at the end of the year. We had nothing going on. Not a single one of us passed that IB exam at the end of the year because there was no learning going on in class. But still, we have fond memories. But because of the teacher's lack of effort or interest, that definitely affects the student. And you look at any academic study today, and Gurudev writes this in his commentary, the instructor is dispensable easily. They're just, you can plug in any teacher there. It's the same thing that goes on. And look at, in this country especially, the lack of respect we have for any kind of a teacher, right? I mean, in India, there's the risk of, I guess, physical retaliation when you mess with the teacher. But for the most part, there was a respect that we have. It's the ethos of our culture, rising when they walk in the room, all of these things. In other countries in the West, it's not like that. A teacher is someone that they know they're paid there to teach. We know they're paid there to teach. You do your job. I'll just enjoy myself in class. I had one tutor one time who grew up in India. And in college, when he was in engineering school, there was, the people in the front row are the ones who are the most studious people, and they're the ones that get the questions asked because they're right in the front. So he was sitting in the front. Now this professor is speaking in a monotone way. There is no modulation in his voice at all. It just sounds like this the entire hour and a half that he's speaking. And then the kids behind him they're throwing things, they're singing songs, they're, throwing paper bags in the air, all of this. This kid got angry at that point. He said, I'm a studious student here. No one's paying attention. He raised his hand. He said, sir, no one is paying attention. They're all making noise. I can't even hear what you're saying. Professor said, okay, you also make noise. It's okay. What's the problem then? So that was his remedy for that. That no one's listening to me anyway. The few who are interested, why does it matter? So teachers get jaded as well. All of this I'm saying to get to the point that at this point in Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is seeking that validation for Bhagavan Krishna, saying, why should I take what you're saying seriously? Why should I have that respect for you? How do you know this knowledge even? Because I mentioned it to the kids in the assembly the first few weeks that we met. Imagine your best friend. You have a best friend? Is that best friend smarter than you? Yeah? Not all of you said yes, so that's indicative right there. I like that. Would you trust that friend with your life? Hesitation again. I love it. All right. Some good friendships we have. But we all have a best friend. If that best friend that you've known for so long, they may be similar in age and position to you, said, I know a knowledge that no one else knows, let me teach this to you. It will change your life. Would you believe that friend? This is the time for honesty right here. You would? If it was your best friend? I don't know if I would. Your best friend in the whole wide world, knowing so much about him, how would you believe that? We were at the Chinmaya Mission West Savaks Conference in California earlier in the summer. So we had to give different presentations, and we would introduce each other before we get on stage to speak. So the brahmachari that introduced me was one who I was in the brahmachari training course with, living next to for 2 years. So he went up there to introduce me. Now, it was a mixed emotion for me. On one end, I was very touched. Such a dear friend introducing me from the stage to welcome me there. On the other end of the spectrum, I was terrified. Knowing me so well for so long, what is he going to say about me up there? What kind of secrets will he reveal knowing me? But thankfully, he kept it really mild, and I thanked him for that on the stage. I said, knowing me so well, you could have said anything, but you kept it this way. Thank you for keeping my respect intact in this situation. Like that our best friends know everything. But would we trust them to teach this knowledge? That's where Arjuna is at this point. To him, Bhagavan Krishna is his cousin. To him, Bhagavan Krishna is his brother-in-law. And it's said in Mahabharata, they're both Kshatriyas from a similar clan, yet they both have different designations within Kshatriyas. So apparently, Bhagavan Krishna's lineage was seen to be of a social status that's lower than that of the Pandavas. So Arjuna used to actually make fun of him, teasing him, saying, I'm a real Kshatriya, you were playing with cows when I was learning archery. He would make comments like that and make fun of him. So that kind of a bye-bye relationship that they have, now Bhagavan Krishna is assuming, saying that I'm going to teach you what the greatest knowledge is. Now, this wasn't the case for all the Pandavas. If you look earlier in Mahabharata, Yudhishthira very forcefully says at one point that Vasudeva Krishna is not some mere human being, he is nothing but that Paramatma. Yudhishthira says that earlier in Mahabharata. Arjuna, however, does not have that kind of reverence. Now in the secular world, to learn any kind of knowledge, love for the subject has to be there, interest in the material, intellectual curiosity, and intellectual prowess must be there to grasp any kind of knowledge. Reverence for the teacher doesn't really have to be there. You can have no respect for the instructor, still let this knowledge come in. That's the secular knowledge. When it comes to this highest knowledge of my true identity, especially in the context of our Sanatana Dharma, reverence for the teacher is a necessity. There is no way this knowledge makes a dent in my mind if I don't have that love and respect for the teacher. Why is that the case? Because for any secular science or learning, it's simply about the objective world. This is how the objects function, this is what they are, this is how you cut, measure, weigh, this is how you view the world, and this is the knowledge that comes in. But in this realm, of a subjective science like Vedanta, every single time I learn from the Guru, it's like a mirror being held up to my face. You see the defects in a personality, these are the defects in your personality. You see this is the way the gunas operate, this is what you must do to overcome those flaws. You think you're this body, you think you're this mind, you think you're this intellect with all of its accomplishments. Not only are these accomplishments false, this very equipment that you identify with, it is nothing but an illusion. If I don't have respect for that teacher that's giving me this knowledge, nothing is going to come in. And you look at the life of our own Puja Gurudev. The very reason why, as a journalist, he went to the Himalayas in the first place was to expose these sadhus as frauds, saying that they demand respect from the people, they're nothing but charlatans who deceive them for some monetary benefit or other benefits. All they do is they're drug peddlers, and the opium of the masses is this nonsense called religion. That was his viewpoint. And so as a journalist in this new country of India, which was only 5 years old or so after independence, he said the best thing I can do for my countrymen is to go expose these people for who they are, get rid of this stain called religion on our pristine new nation. That's the way we move forward. And so he goes there to Rishikesh, meets with Pujya Swami Shivanandaji, and he arrogantly questions him, saying, "What do you have to offer to the world? You seem to have nothing to offer. All you do is fool people into thinking that some God is real, and then they give you money as a conduit to that God. What you're doing is wrong." From that arrogant standpoint, Swami Shivanandaji entertains his questions that he has about life. The basic questions that you and I have as well. That why do bad things happen to good people? Why is there so much pain and suffering in the world if there is a God? These kinds of basic questions he goes with. Shivanandaji patiently answers question after question. And within a few months, not only has that Balakrishnan Menon, which was Pujya Gurudev's Purvashrama name, not only has he abandoned that plan to write that censuring article, he says, let me renounce everything, let me join the order as a Swami as well, is the point that he comes to. It's not that this knowledge was so enrapturing to him. It was the person that inspired him to that knowledge, that's what mattered most. Then from there, after taking Sannyasa Diksha, he wants more of this knowledge. He says, what I got here, a taste of it is good. I want to know the truth even deeper. I'd like to study more. I want to do a systematic study of the Shastra. Swami Shivanandaji says, go to Pujya Swami Tapovanji Maharaj, who is in Uttarakashi. He says, go make that journey there. So I think for about 21 to 28 days, Pujya Gurudev marches on, and in those days, the path to get from Rishikesh to Uttarkashi is treacherous. There may be wild animals, there's no paved roads, and it's not like today where we have these, nice warm articles of clothing. Pujya Gurudev had one stick, an upper cloth, a lower cloth, and one kamandalu. That's what he went with. So he makes that trek for about a month, all the way to Uttarkashi, completely exhausted by the time he gets there. It's the rainy season and it's cold. Then he finds Pujya Swami Tapovanji Maharaj, approaches him, and says, I want to take you as my guru, I want this knowledge. Swami Shivanandaji has sent me here. Tapovanji Maharaj looks at him and he says, how do I know you're being truthful? You claim that Shivanandaji has sent you here. Is there like a piece of paper with a signed note? Like we have for excused absences, is there a signed note saying that you're his student? How am I supposed to know? Pujya Gurudev says, I didn't get anything like that. He says that I'm not going to take you as a student. If you want me to take you as a student, go back to Shivanandaji, get that letter signed by him, then come back to me. 9 out of 10 people, what 9 out of 10? 99 out of 100 people at that moment would have said, Hari Om, thank you for considering me for this post, but I will do something else with my life, I'm done. Instead, what does Pujya Gurudev do? He goes all the way back down to Rishikesh. Upon seeing him so soon, Shivanandaji says, wow, you must have learned this knowledge already. How great are you? He says, no, I need to get this note. So he signs it for him, goes back up to Tapovan Kutir, gives him the note. It's probably folded, gives him the note. Without even glancing at it, Tapovanji Maharaj puts it aside, says, let's begin. The note was not important. The guru in this instance wanted to know, what is the tenacity of the student? To pursue any other kind of knowledge in this world, there has to be an interest, but that dogged tenacity is not a requirement. For this Vedantic study, though, where it's a subjective science, looking at myself critically, seeing this world as unreal eventually, that takes a whole nother type of dedication. That was the test put forward by that teacher. And so Pujya Gurudev begins that study. So again, in this 4th chapter, in the beginning then, where Arjuna may have questioned, what is this knowledge, and who are you to teach this knowledge even, Bhagavan Krishna starts with, I taught this to Vivaswan, Vivaswan who taught to Manu, Manu who taught to Ikshvaku. He's giving that lineage there. But in that lineage, he's saying, I taught it. Meaning what? One big siddhanta comes up here. The siddhanta of reincarnation. A tenet of Sanatana Dharma. Now, 2 words to differentiate here. Reincarnation versus rebirth. You and I have rebirth. As jivas, we don't incarnate. Incarnate means we don't incarnate. No, I haven't. I don't know about any of you, but we don't incarnate. We simply have rebirth. Bhagavan incarnates. And he says, I've taught this knowledge several times as an avatara is what he's saying. Now the 2 famous shlokas made famous by B.R. Chopra, Yada Yada Hi Dharmasya, from there we know it so well. In the assembly also, every other shloka people are just whispering it. For that one, no book, no nothing. Sambhavami Yuge Yuge! Right? What's given in those 2 shlokas that makes them so pivotal is, Bhagavan explains, when is it that I come down as an avatara? When dharma goes through glanihi, when dharma is neglected and trampled on, that's when I come down. Which begs the question, we're saying in our religion that dharma is sanatana, eternal. By definition, that which is eternal is that which has no beginning to it, that which has no end. No matter what is done, something that is eternal cannot be diminished, cannot be destroyed. Yet we're saying here that when dharma is trampled, that's when Bhagavan must come. And not just once or twice, Bhagavan has so many avataras. In Srimad Bhagavatam, for instance, our understanding is what? That there are those 10 basic avataras. Those are the highlights, the biggest ones. It's like when there's a famous actor or a singer, before they got famous, chances are they did a whole string of awful films that got them to superstardom. We see their first, the big films that they make, and we say, oh, they must be great actors. There's a bunch of nonsense they made before then to get to that point. And when the career has lulls like this, you have to do nonsense films to get money as well. That happens. So like that, when we simply point to the few that we know, we say, oh, this is great. But there was a time when lots of the avatars of Bhagavan Mahavishnu, for example, were known by many. Over time, our interest and knowledge of these scriptures has fallen, so we take a few as the prominent ones, but there are so many avatars, all of them equal, because they are all that form of divinity. In the churning of the Milky Ocean, Mohini Rupa comes out, Dhanvantari comes out, all these different forms. That's the same as the form of Mahavishnu, different avatars there. Now, he says, I come to protect dharma. And we say dharma doesn't need protection, it's eternal. What's meant by that is, those who are practicing dharma, when they are persecuted, I come to help them. It's not that dharma is going through any ebb or flow. It's where the few people in the world practicing that dharma, when they face challenges and struggles, when their quest to spread this knowledge is impeded, when they are being physically harmed, that's when Bhagavan comes. Whether it's the form here during Mahabharata, or how many people died during the Kurukshetra war? Any guesses, total? It's in the Mahabharata, how many that died? 18 Akshohinis participated, total. 1.6 billion men died. Billion! And now we're saying, how is that possible? How are there that many people? That history doesn't say. Looking back at Itihasas, then we find there were a lot of people at that time, different kalpa even. 1.6 billion people died in that war. To uphold dharma, that is the monumental effort it took. So Bhagavan Krishna comes in those pivotal moments like that. Now you find instances like Prahlada, Dhruva, honest seekers of that Bhagavan, who are persecuted by their own families, no less. Bhagavan comes to protect them as well, because they are upholding that dharma. Now, when we see this idea then, this theory of reincarnation, it begs a further question. When you and I go through this process of rebirth, and we explain this in 3rd chapter and 2nd chapter, this process of rebirth takes place because I have these vasanas, strong impressions that give birth to desire. Therefore, when it's so latently in me, there is no way that I can exhaust it without taking one more birth. And in that next one more birth, I build more impressions, so one more, and one more, and one more, and here I am today. A bundle of vasanas taking birth one after the other. Because of the action that I perform in each janma, these vasanas compound one over the other. So the question arises then, if Bhagavan is also taking avatara and coming down and doing karmas and actions like I am, doesn't Bhagavan build up those impressions as well? Doesn't he have to take avatara next to get rid of those vasanas? Isn't that a logical question that comes up? To address that in this chapter, Bhagavan says once again, I do not have karmas. When you act, you're acting for selfish reasons. Selfish meaning egocentric, thinking I'm the assemblage. Therefore, you accrue karmas, and you must fulfill them and take care of those vasanas. Bhagavan does not accrue any vasanas that way. There is no prarabdha karma for an avatar. So it's not action done with any consequence for that actor. It's simply done is how it is. Now, after this section here, Bhagavan goes clearly into what is the basis for a person's personality. How do we classify personalities in the first place? Because the very purpose of taking one janma after the other is, let me exhaust the vasanas through karma in this life, let me purify this inner instrument so I can approach this knowledge. That's the very point of one janma after the other. So the question comes here again then, when it comes to this personality that's put in place to exhaust vasanas, how can we bucket these personalities logically so that it makes it easier for the person to understand what their personality is? Upon knowing that personality, certain actions can be taken to exhaust those vasanas. It's as simple as if you're in an organization like this and you're looking at volunteers. Volunteers come in all different personality types. There are some, they come and they say, we want to serve. Okay? There's a task that we have where this many mats has to be in that room, has to happen in the next 20 minutes. We have to set up the stage, altar, all of these things. You walk in 10 minutes later, it's already done. They know exactly what goes where. They're very active. Not only that, they've inspired 10 others to join them, and they move stuff in there. And then there are others. You say something physical has to be done, by the time the words are out of your mouth, they start looking exhausted already, the moment you mention something physical. But if you tell them, finance-wise, we have to go through the ledger here. All the donations that we get, we have to sift through them, categorize them, it's like above the head, in the brain, really mind-numbing. There's no joy that comes from that. You see so many numbers, you also feel like a number after a certain point. They excel at that. So different personality types of what kind of seva they want to do. Now, if you're leading this, and we see it from our Bal Vihar kids as well. How many of you are 8th grade parents, by the way, today, your kids perform? It was awesome to see. I took a picture of you taking all the pictures. Because the way it works in Bal Vihar, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd grade, every parent is there taking a video and picture. I've seen parents elbow other kids and parents out of the way so they can get a good shot. We stand as one family is for pledge only. When it comes to taking a video, nothing else matters. You can do whatever you want, Sab chalta hai at that point. So kindergarten to 3rd grade, we have parents coming every time taking the video. By the time the kid gets to middle school, 6th through 8th grade, the number of parents really thins. That's why I'm so impressed today that so many of you came for your 8th grade kids. It's really good to see. Because by that point, there aren't as many parents. Then try looking at a 9th through 12th grade class. No one is there. When we were in 11th grade, this is a true story. 11th grade, we were on stage for the first time that year. Not a single one of our parents was in the audience. The only person that took our video was our 10th grade teacher from last year. He was sitting there and he saw that he knows who our parents are. He's like, wait, none of these poor kids are orphaned today. No one is there for them. He said, let me take a video for these kids at least, and he took it. And how public this was is, the guy that talked about what we do in class, he mentioned this on the stage that day. He said, none of our parents are here, our old teacher is taking the video today. So that happens as the kids get older. As a 10th grader, you tell your parents, I'm on stage today. Okay, so what? They said, I'm talking about what we do in class. Yeah, you did that 2 years ago also. We have the video. It's okay. Go to Bal Vihar. The love lessons there at that point. So I'm very proud to see so many 8th grade parents. It was fun to see you were jockeying for position. They were elbowing each other the other way as well. That was happening. It's like finding a parking spot at Chitrakoot. You were doing the same thing there. It was very heartwarming to see. I loved it. Now, when it comes to these moments where they perform on stage, you may know this, you may not know this, the teachers have the most difficult job up there. They have to choose who does what. What we do in class has to be there, the bhajans, and you can't put your quietest kids in the front. Even with the mic, they whisper. That's how it is. And the teacher's sitting in the front, louder and louder. Okay, a little bit louder. That's how it happens. That's the life of a teacher in Bal Vihar. So you choose the best person for each role. What we do in class, the person has to be able to speak for 2 minutes at least, intelligibly. Whether the teacher wrote the script or him, that's a different story, but they have to be able to speak on it at least. When it comes to the bhajan, someone that can carry the tune for the class. In a class of 20 kids, maybe 5 are good singers, Those 5 need to be up in the front, or else the entire assembly falls into, betar, bekar, everything happens at that point. So these different talents are there, they bring those out. Similarly to exhaust my vasanas, certain talents and tendencies I have, they serve as a springboard for action for me to exhaust those vasanas. Now, to understand how these personality types are classified, there is a beautiful yet often misunderstood system within Sanatana Dharma that tells us what this is. 13th shloka of this 4th chapter, Chatur Varnyam Maya Srishtam. Made by me, Bhagavan saying, made by me, there is this 4-tiered structure called the Varna system. Notice I haven't used the word caste. I'll get into why soon. The Varna system. And he says, Guna Karma Vibhakashaha, based on different gunas, meaning tendencies and shades of personality, based on karma, action, this is that system which facilitates the spiritual growth for an individual within a community, is what Bhagavan Krishna says. Now this Varna system is often displayed as a pyramid. A few at the top in a certain class and strata, and then population increases as we go, but then it gets lower. This is a Western concept. There's a famous book by a professor named Nicholas B. Dirks, Castes of Mind and Colonialism. I suggest you all read it at some point. I've had our Balavihar teachers go through it. He goes through step by step of how we went from an understanding of Varna as it truly is in Shastra, how from the Vedic period up until the advent of colonialism, society functioned perfectly because of this system, and with the advent of colonialism, 1600s and after, this entire structure was completely demonized, turned into something hateful, and we're still dealing with the vestiges of that malfeasance even today. Now, let's explain from the beginning here. The Varnas that are given, it's not a hierarchical structure. If anything, it's a linear structure, where each person in each strata, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, is valued for what they offer to society. What's given here in Bhagavad Gita is, for that person whose vasanas have to do with understanding knowledge, that's where their talents lie, that's where their personality is, their direction is. Someone who has sattva pradhana, meaning sattva is that highest guna in their personality, and the ones that have other traces are tamas and rajas, then that person is in intellectual pursuits in that way. For someone who's dynamic, leading groups of people, not simply someone that follows what trends are, but sets what is the agenda for the people to follow, where rajas is high, sattva is also high, tamas is lower. Then, as a kshatriya, someone that administrates, leads. In the world of business, where we have instances where people have built incredible empires out of nothing. It's like taking a small twig, kindling, making a huge bonfire out of that. That talent to procure, to penetrate, to understand the way the world works, use that for benefits. Rajas has to be high there. Vaishya. Then we get to the Shudra community. Without skilled artisans and specialized labor, no community flourishes. You look at the beautiful architecture we have in Bharata, all of the great facilities, the institutions that were built, the kind of pride people took in work and the quality of work that was done. Without the Shudra community the way it was, none of that would have happened. And they were valued in society. They were compensated directly for the work they did, proportional to how amazing it was. We see that in the Puranas and Itihasas. So that was a system that existed. From there, where did we go? Once colonialism set in, the British understood we have to take control over these Hindu people in India. But there's so many of them. If you cannot take over a community of people by force, because you're outnumbered, how do you take over that community? Divide and conquer. Even when you see Kautilya's Arthashastra, Samadana Danda Bheda is what's given as the 4 ways. If conciliation does not work, if bribery through gifts does not work, if some kind of coercion does not work, Bheda is where you split the people apart, force them against each other, you've won your fight at that point. So what did that Bheda result in Bharatavarsha then? Where the British would take people from certain stratas, they'd label them as high caste, take them from certain stratas, have them in secretarial clerical positions, teaching them English, putting them in these positions, only hiring them, and after a couple generations pointing to the population and saying, see, these people are rich, these people are educated, these people are serving in our administration, they've left you behind, you're poor, you're uneducated, look what these people did to you. That was the first cudgel that was made. Secondly, what was done? Around 1670, there was one linguist. His name was William Jones. He was British. He came in at that time and said that there are many languages in the world that have similar words between them. The word mother, for instance. English is mother, Sanskritam, matra, German, moder, like that. Very similar words, there are a lot of them like that. So his hypothesis was there must be some common language that was the first original language, every other language branched off of it. A logical way to go. Now his logic took an awful turn when he said, this has to be some certain Indo-European language. The original people must have been somewhere in that Eurasian area. From there, everyone split. Now, this kind of thinking, what did it lead to? Further thinkers after him said that there was a group of people called Aryans, white-skinned, Caucasian-skinned people. They went to India, where in Bharata at that time, they claim there were natives there called Dravidians. These Aryans came in. Dravidians, they say, had their own religion, their own culture. These Aryans had to enslave those people somehow. How did they do that then? They came up with a language, these white Aryans came up with a language called Sanskritam. And they made these Vedas and everything out of that language, but that wasn't enough. To enslave these Dravidians, they had to come up with some kind of structure to do that, so they created what they called the caste system to do it, to enslave these people. They said it was based on skin color, where the whites were at the top, Brahmana, Kshatriya, and when the Shudras are dark-skinned, the Dravidian locals there, they enslaved them and made them the Shudras. Now, this sounds laughable and stupid, doesn't it? This is what you learned in school. This is what I learned in school as well. It's been generally accepted as the truth for over 200 years now. Now, what are the implications of this philosophy here? You must be saying, Hari Bhai, we have to talk about Bhagavad Gita here. You're bringing in all this stuff. What are you doing? I'm doing it for a very specific reason here. They're saying, and the history books are saying, Hinduism was created not as a product of philosophy, it was manufactured to subjugate and control people. That Sanskritam was there, the Aryans brought it over, they had their philosophy. In order to subjugate people, they made this caste system. To validate the caste system, they made this religion around it. So what point does that take us to eventually in the logic? Hinduism was created only control and to enslave people. That's what we get from this wrong history. Now, because of it, Hinduism today, and this is seen far and wide, is seen as this hateful, awful religion. 2 days ago, I was on YouTube and a video came up from Friday where it's an imam and it's one journalist, and they're talking about how the biggest threat to the world today is Hindu extremism and Hindu nationalism. And they're saying how awful it is, and they're saying it affects people in America also, because these Hindus here are also cultivating this mindset. You know, hey, they have their evil caste system like that. That's Nazism, it's fascism, it's like the KKK. They brought up all this stuff, and they said it's spreading in America amongst these Hindus as well. Now, looking at it, I looked at the YouTube page. Do you know which YouTube page that is? East Plano Islamic Center is what that is. This is happening right in our backyard here. And it's no surprise. Given that you look at our income level as a community, you look at our achievement level, how much influence we have, that makes people very insecure. We work hard, very darn hard for where we are today, but even in this country, in this city, there are forces alive to lie about who we are as a people. It's happening on our very own doorstep here. And what made me sad was they panned out the camera at this event. This journalist and this imam were going at it, talking about how wrong these Hindus are for what they do, how hateful they are, how people feel unsafe because India is the most fascist country in the world, is what they say in the video. You pan out a little bit, it's all a bunch of children who are watching this there. Children who go to school with your kids. Now, what's their idea of Hinduism then? And of Hindus? And you look at the comments section, it's, oh, we have to unite against this. This is wrong. How can the Hindus be this way? This kind of thing spreads. It starts from misinterpreting Shastra, of colonists using it a certain way. This is what it leads to today. It affects us now. That's why I'm going into it. So one more subtle point to point out here. Bhagavan Krishna here says the Varnas are created and established based on the guna and the karma of a person. Guna meaning what is the preponderance of their sattva, rajas, tamas in them. Karma, what action should they take then? What vocation should they take in response to those gunas? Now, one popular view that's given is Bhagavan here says only about guna and karma, does not talk about janma at all when it comes to varna. That janma should not matter. Now, if you look at today's society, and Gurudev has said this in interviews as well, whatever the varna system was and how efficient it was, that's gone away here. Today, there is no abidance by it from anyone, therefore it's moot in many ways. But for our philosophical understanding here, there is a role that janma plays, however, here, according to Siddhanta. If you look at the logic, I am put in a situation to exhaust my vasanas the best I can. The family I'm born into, all of that has a very big impact on what my spiritual path is. You're all Chinmaya Mission members now, either in India or after moving to this country. Your first foray into Sanatana Dharma, your first story of Ramayana or Mahabharata, the first puja you did, chances are it was your parents and grandparents that influenced you, coming from that family. The very fact that any of you belong to a family where this Sanatana Dharma is a central part of it, something that's respected, is the result of something happening in a previous birth. Why is it that so many people that come from a Hindu family, I've met people like this, they've come from a Hindu family, they have no regard for the religion. They say it's all nonsense, I'm an atheist, I live my life for material things, I don't need religion. Can't judge them for it, what they say is what they say, whatever. But the fact that you take this seriously, family has played a role in that, janma does matter then. Nothing is by accident. Even being born into a family that values this knowledge is punya, brought on by something in a previous life, even that's a blessing. Biggest blessing in my life is that I was a Chinmaya Mission member since I was 5 years old, as a kindergartner. Most people that take a path like this have to go searching for a guru and everything like that. I was brought here with the guru here from the very beginning. Not understanding that benefit, I came in kicking and screaming as a teenager saying I don't want to come, parents still dragged me here. I'm thankful they did every time, or else nothing would have happened on this journey. So the biggest benefit I've had is not looking for a guru, the guru's been here the entire time. That's also a blessing then. So janma does matter in that way. Now going forward, we'll end with this point today. There is that 16th shloka that's very famous in this chapter, and very interesting to see. Kim karma kima karmeti kavayopyatra mohitaha tatte karma pravakshyami yajñatva mokshase shubhat. We chanted this very shloka, lead and repeat today. So there's that question that arises, what is action, what is inaction? We slightly touched upon this last time. That action and inaction, when we look at what it is, we make our decision of which is which based on what is the physical action taking place. That we see someone moving around and doing something, that's action. You see a person with their eyes closed just sitting there, that must be inaction then. It's like in any event or work, when you want to distinguish yourself from others, you have to show that you're working harder than the others. So the person who just sits there diligently doing what they're supposed to do, it doesn't work. You have to walk around, talk about how much work you have. If anyone ever approaches you or doesn't approach you, the first thing you say is, can't talk, so much, oh, I'm so busy, this, that. Okay. When we were at the Brahmachari training course, there was one lady that lived at the ashram for many years. So she's a sevak there. She does lots of good work there. But she has to talk about it all the time. That's also one part of it. So my job, one of my jobs was, before every class, I go in the elevator to my Acharyaji's room, get the books that he's teaching from, put it on his lectern. So I go 10 minutes early, get the books, and then go. Every now and then I'd be caught with her in the elevator. I time it so I wouldn't have to, but sometimes it just, what can you do? Luck of the draw. It's an elevator. You can't kick down the door and just run out, right? About a 2-minute elevator ride. So I jump in there, and if you have to say something, like, how do you and how are you, is all you say. And in this country especially, it's understood. How are you doing doesn't mean you have to give an answer for that. Whether you're good or bad or whatever, just say, I'm fine, you move on. That's understood. They don't want your Mahabharata at that point. So I found out that out the hard way. So I said, how are you? But you, so much work, what to say, I have to do this, I'm the only one working, I have to do this, that. So after a while, I stopped asking, because I know that's what's going to happen. So I'd just come in, I'd say, Hari Om, and that's it. I'd look away. And then she'd look, like, you're not going to ask what work? I said, but you have to tell you something. I said, what? So much work, but you, I have this going on, that going on, this, that. She'd start again. So action to us, if it's not frenetic and someone is feverishly working, that doesn't look like action. If someone is relaxed and just enjoying it all, they must not be doing anything then. That's why they're so happy. Inaction then is understanding that these extroverted pursuits are simply born of desire, looking inwards, not being so fulfilled in the world of objects, coming to that understanding. After that understanding, nothing else is to be fulfilled but this knowledge. That is inaction. It's not a negative thing. That's when that introverted pursuit is there. That's what inaction is. Because this idea of extrovert-introvert needs a Vedantic understanding as well. Because in our minds, extroverts are those that are able to speak freely with others and quite outgoing. Introverts are those that are shy. In a Vedantic standpoint, extrovertedness is, I get my pleasure and happiness from the world of objects outside. Introvertedness does not mean I don't mingle with people well. Introvertedness means my true pleasure in the direction I'm looking in for growth is inwards through Shastra, through understanding my personality. Objects of the world are not what make me happy. That's the goal that's clearly given there. So any undertaking that's taken up, what is the reason for it? Does it have any benefit? Does it benefit me spiritually? That's one marker to look at, which we often overlook at times. So we'll end at this point today. The next point's going to take a while. So I've been told, Hariji, you go through, you speak till 10:30, you don't take time for questions. Does that mean you don't know how to answer questions, or are you scared of them? I am not. So please, any questions you have 10 minutes, please go ahead.
I have a question. So I have a child in middle school,
Mm-hmm.
probably guilty of not appreciating them the way you were pointing out earlier. But my question is about what should kids do when they're taught this construct that you were talking about earlier today? Because I frankly am a little bit uncomfortable with the idea of my son disagreeing with the teacher publicly, right? So they are talking about caste in class, and you know, I'm married to a husband who was like, you should absolutely disagree, stand up and, you know, mute me. But I'm curious, how would you advise that we go about dissenting?
So the question, for the benefit of the Saket people, the question is, when it comes to these topics of what they call caste being taught, I mean, kids standing up and saying something in school, or how do they navigate this? Our teachers give us our grades at the end of the day. That is a reality we have to face. We need good grades to move on in life. That is also a reality we have to face. So if we are a part of this public education or private education, that is what's being taught, dissenting openly with that teacher and saying this is wrong has adverse effects for us. Now, there are so many things as a community we don't agree with in the school systems. The fact that Newton discovered gravity, the fact that Galileo discovered heat for the first time, if you look at our Shastras, we knew it long before. So if there is a scope for dissent, there's plenty to dissent about. So much of what we learn in school we can say, wrong, wrong from the Hindu perspective. But how does that benefit us is the question then. So the only safe haven, because families are uncomfortable bringing this up sometimes, talking with the kids, may not have the full perspective or may not have that need to do that. In the school system, they're being fed something different. Where's the only place, when it comes to a Hindu perspective, they can get an unbiased, true view of it? Right here. And that's what we're taking up for the kids as well, for a large portion of it. Teaching them to be confident in what the truth of their religion is, but also telling them at the same time, it's not worth it to publicly dissent where you're not in a position of power that adversely affects you. Don't be obnoxious out there about it. Internally know what this is, discuss it amongst yourselves, tell your friends outside as well what the reality is, but if your actions of protest will hurt you in some way or hurt your family in some way, don't take that up. We make that very clear. So special topics are something that we've taken up in the past couple of years. Swamiji before he left, and then Divyaji and I, where we went through certain topics like what is Varna? That was one thing we went through with the kids last year. Where during the pandemic, we'd go through certain topics with them on Zoom when we'd visit the classes, whether it was Ram Janmabhoomi, whether misappropriation of yoga, academic Hindu phobia. We went through all of this. Now that we started back in person, we've been training our Bal Vihar teachers to take up 3 lessons like this every year and talk about it. So this year, what are the special topics? One special topic in November is going to be on understanding Dharma through dana, charity. Now, one popular idea that's gone around amongst Hindus is the Sikhs offer langar at their gurudwaras, Muslims perform zakat, the Christians have so many charitable things, our Hindus don't do anything. That's a lie. In our Vedic system, charity, giving in dana is a huge part of it. It'll come in Bhagavad Gita next semester. All of this is there, we just have to know it. It is being followed, but there are impediments to it. We'll teach the kids that as well. Then understanding samskara is the second special topic for next semester. When it comes to samskaras that we have, especially in this day and age, following them seems to be the most ridiculous thing to do. Where this is always a fight that happens now. Parents come to me with tears in their eyes, saying, my kid's about to get married, we're so happy they're engaged, but when it comes to the wedding now, they want a quick 30-minute ceremony. They don't want to go through any of our samskaras. When have we taught our kids the importance of a vivaha samskara? When does that discussion ever come up? It doesn't. To them, ritual means sitting through the pujas, for them, which are boring, they're on their phones or playing somewhere else. A wedding, all of a sudden, they're going to take it seriously and say, yes, 4-hour wedding, let me sit through it. Importance of samskaras then has to come here as well. So you may say, hey, that's not part of my kid's curriculum going through the samskaras. You'll thank me when it's time for them to get married and they do take it seriously then you'll thank me for bringing that up. So understanding samskara, second special topic. Third special topic, understanding niti, meaning what is administration, what is diplomacy, what is policy. We had our high school hangout on Friday, and the moment we finished one of our sessions, I said, we have about 15 minutes left. Question answer session, whatever you want to ask. I was hoping they'd ask about the concept we went through. We talked about gunas and everything. I'm hoping it was that. 3 hands raised. What's your question? All 3 of them, what do you think about Palestine and Israel right now? That's what they asked. That's what they're going, that's what they're seeing on the news. It's natural that they would ask that. So I had to explain in the Hindu standpoint, what is our idea of diplomacy and just war and all of this. That's something the kids should know. Because by about 6th grade or 7th grade, they're formalizing what their political views are. Is that from a Hindu standpoint? Now, we have to be delicate about it. We're a nonprofit. So people ask me sometimes, Trump or Biden, what do you do? I give them the straight answer. My position is, my president is Ashok Dandekar. That's all I care about. He's our Dallas president. I say that's my president. I don't care about any other system out there. But our kids have to understand the Hindu view of diplomacy and what a governmental structure is in the Vedic period. How does that have relevance today? How do we want society to function? So these special topics infused from a young age, they build that reverence for what the religion is. In the most practical of ways of, at the time of vivaha, do they go through the proper samskara? All the way to, when it comes to donating their money for different causes, what is the purpose? Because we're open with every Christmas time. Salvation Army will have the bells and they have people donating. A lot of Hindus donate to these organizations, whether it's Salvation Army, St. Jude's Hospital, Habitat for Humanity, Red Cross. If you trace the money, lots of this money is used to convert Hindus to other religions in India. If you follow the money, it's right there. As a Hindu, how do we donate to these organizations then? I'm not blaming them saying that they're doing something wrong. I'm saying ignorance is what's festering that. Let's not have our kids fall for that when they're adults. That change has to be made right now. So holistic learning in that way. Any other questions? I took one answer for 8 minutes. I'm awful. Any other questions? Yes.
I have been researching on Nalanda University.
Mm-hmm.
It was destroyed a while back. It is back into existence. And I heard they're also offering PhDs in Hinduism. What is the contribution going on with Nalanda University to the community?
I'm not sure. I have to research that. I did read an article basically on that. But what is their contribution? I haven't seen yet. So the question was Nalanda University, which was a famous university, burned down by invaders, is on the rise again. They're offering programs. So I'll research on that to let you know. But it's a good opportunity for me to talk about CVV, Chinmaya Vishwa Vidyapeeth, which is the university run by the Chinmaya Mission. And there, they also have in Indic studies, Indian knowledge systems, they're offering degrees and things like that there. So their view is, for a lot of universities in the country in India that are offering knowledge of Indian knowledge systems, employment prospects are low for these graduates. The feeling is they're not getting a modern education. So what they've done here is, it's a modern education. They have MBAs and all these other degrees on administration with an IKS element introduced in there. For example, they have an MBA program that is seen as very valid, Masters of Business Administration. One of the course offerings in that is, how are Hindu temples run? You look at the Vedic society and even after, the Hindu temple was a place not just for religion, commerce, economic improvement, a social hub. All of these things took place there. So the management of a temple is very important to see how seamlessly they were run with thousands of devotees coming in on a daily basis. So how was money allocated? All of this. That's one course offering within the MBA program. So still a valid program with that context of the Indian knowledge systems. That's what they're going for. So I suspect Nalanda University is doing something similar, but before I go that far, I'll do my research and get back to you. So with that, it's 10:30. I still ended on time. You should, yeah. I'm thankful, you're thankful. So again, thank you so much for being here, and we'll meet again in a couple weeks then. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om.